Hello, YouTubers and NFL fans everywhere. This is Matt, the NFL Fanatic, giving you my 2016-2017 Conference Championship game weekend predictions. Well, for the Fanatic, it was another overall good week for predictions. So now, for last week against the spread for the divisional round and straight up for the divisional round, I went 3-1 both ways. The only game I had lost was the was the Green Bay Packers beating the Dallas Cowboys. I had Dallas -5 and straight up. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers and his arm overpowered the Dallas Cowboys team, which is remarkable. And now he becomes the first NFL quarterback to have 2 consecutive postseason games with 350-plus passing yards and multiple TDs, and to win the games by having 350-plus passing yards in consecutive games in the postseason. So, when you have a quarterback as hot as he is, as accurate, as precise, as consistent, making every throw basically on the edge of, the sideline, or every time he needed a big play, he could produce it. There's nothing that much you can do to stop it. I thought the Cowboys, for the most part, during the beginning of the game, they just looked rusty. They didn't look prepared. They looked sluggish. Dak made a few crucial mistakes. The defense, there was the unsportsmanlike conduct penalty when Bryce Butler was in the huddle. I somewhat understood it, even though I don't understand how. Okay, I guess I don't understand that's a penalty. But I guess if he's just in the huddle and it's kind of like an illusion and he's not taking part in the play, that's just one of those things that could tip off a defense, even though, again, I would have called that illegal formation. But when you look at what the Dallas Cowboys did afterward, they had a tremendous comeback. Dak Prescott threw for 300 yards, first rookie quarterback to throw for 300 yards and 3+ passing touchdowns in a postseason game for a debut. He checked every box of doubt that all the Romoists, if you will, the pro-Romo camp, didn't want to hear, but he showed a lot of leadership. He put the team more back on his arm when they were down by 18. Again, you can argue, should they have ran Ezekiel Elliott more? Absolutely. 22 carries, 122 yards. I would have given Zeke the ball between 30 to 35 carries like the Steelers did with Le'Veon Bell. That would have helped out. And they made some controversial and questionable decision with play calling, certainly in some spots of the game. The 3 straight throws on third down when you have a 2nd and 1 on the 20-yard line and you try to throw a quick screen that Micah Hyde picks off and completely halts that drive. But at the end of the day, the Packers just had too much firepower, and Rodgers' arm was able to make more plays against that defense than Dak could against the Packer defense. And when you have an 18-point lead, thankfully, even though they blew it, Rodgers was able to pull him back to get the victory. And shout out to Mason Crosby as well, first kicker with 2 50-plus yard, or first time in his career he's made 2 50-plus yard field goals in the fourth quarter to win a game or overtime. He was 0 for 4 in that situation in all of his previous games before, so kudos to him. 2 clutch kicks. I don't agree that he's the best kicker in the league, like Aaron Rodgers said. I think he was just kind of hyping his guy, but Mason Crosby definitely came through that tremendously when he needed to. But congrats to that game. That was a tremendous back-and-forth game by both squads. But that was the one game I did lose. So now overall for the postseason, I am 7-1, which is still 88%. So again, only having 1 loss through 2 weeks, that's very good. I will take that. And now overall for the year, I am 129, 119, and 8 against the spread, which is about 52%. And straight up, I'm now 167, 95, and 2, which is 63 points, which is about 64%. So I will take that I've had a pretty successful year if you add the postseason success to my overall success. I hit my 50-plus goal against the spread for the first time, and straight up, I've got about 64%. That is pretty doggone good. So time for my picks, time for my thoughts on each game. But first, just to go back from a couple videos ago when I talked about my bracket, I had New England and Pittsburgh in the AFC Championship game. So that was correct. and incorrect was my NFC Championship game prediction with with Dallas and Atlanta. Now it's at Green Bay at Atlanta. And in that game, the Atlanta Falcons are 4-point favorites in this game. I like the Packers +4 here, but I am going to take Atlanta straight up. And for the New England-Pittsburgh game, just like I had it originally, I will take New England to beat the Pittsburgh Steelers straight up. However, Pittsburgh is a 5.5-point underdog. I'm going to take Pittsburgh +5.5. And again, you guys can criticize me for hedging my bets on both my picks, but really, with how these two games are, Pittsburgh, I think if Le'Veon Bell can play like he has been, and the offense with Antonio Brown, if Eli Rogers can make some plays, if that offensive line can control, New England's pass rush, they should be able to cover about 6 points. And Green Bay Atlanta is a toss-up because Aaron Rodgers, again, he's playing against a weaker defense in the Atlanta Falcons. They just lost Adrian Claiborne. And honestly, he could win this game. And I think with Atlanta, same thing with Atlanta, that they can win this game too. So again, those two picks, I'm going to change my pick now because I have to. I'm going to take the Green Bay Packers +4 and Atlanta straight up. And for New England-Pittsburgh, I'm going to go New England straight up, and I am going to take Pittsburgh +5.5. If you guys want to criticize me for hedging my bets, sure, go ahead. But I really think that's how I feel about these two games. That I believe Green Bay Atlanta is a toss-up, or it can be. And New England-Pittsburgh, I think Pittsburgh's played well enough, and their defense has played tremendously well enough, that they can cover about 6 points. Especially with Ben back there. Alright, so time for my thoughts on each game. Packers at Falcons. I know I just talked about the Packers game, so let me, for a second, talk about the Atlanta Falcons. I want to congratulate them. That was a spectacular all-around game, basically, by the Atlanta Falcons. Matt Ryan, in 2 playoff games against Seattle, in the games he's won, he has absolutely done tremendously against this Legion of Boom defense. Since Pete Carroll's taken over since 2012, 69.4% completion percentage, 588 yards, 6 touchdowns, so only 2 interceptions in that game, or in those 2 games. And again, is only 2 playoff victories. And actually, the Atlanta offense scored the second most points on the Seattle defense in a playoff game. They tied the most points in a playoff game against a Pete Carroll-led Seattle team in the playoffs ever by putting up 36 points. The only other team that put up 36 points on the Seattle Seahawks was the 2010 New Orleans Saints, the game in which, remember, they lost 41-36 after the Beastquake run. So I do want to congratulate Atlanta for being that tremendously high-powered, and Seattle's defense, and as big as a Russell Wilson Seattle supporter I was. First of all, Seattle's defense got bullied by the Atlanta offense. The offensive line did a phenomenal job blocking the front 7 of the Hawks. I think Ryan only got sacked about 2 or 3 times, but every other time he was able to find the open receiver. Julio Jones had a great game against Richard Sherman. And Richard Sherman, even though I just found out today, he was playing through an MCL sprain through the entire year. Again, he was out there. Again, you kind of could say, how much better could he be? But I don't think that would have mattered if he was 100% fully healthy. That's just my opinion. But Telvin Coleman and Devontae Freeman just shredded the running game and the passing game for the Falcons. Mohamed Sanu made some big plays. Taylor Gabriel made some plays. Austin Hooper contributed. Justin Hardy. The entire Atlanta offense just was unbelievable to watch. And you literally just tell yourselves, okay, we are going to have to contain this offense, not stop it, because Atlanta just has too many weapons that it's too potent to stop. It's just trying to contain. So I'm going to congratulate Atlanta with that. But I do want to say this, and again, I'm a big Russell Wilson fan, and just watching that game, Russell Wilson underwhelmed. If I had to grade his whole performance, I would give him a 70% on the nose, which is a C-. He missed huge throws to Doug Baldwin on 2 occasions for possible touchdowns. He overthrew another receiver. The one throw where he was basically being athletic, that athletic interception, that was all his fault. He was just trying to forced the ball to Alex Collins, which was unadvised. And for my guy Russell Wilson, it was a tough day. And as big Russell Wilson fan, it was a tough day. But he underwhelmed. He underperformed. He had a C performance. 8-4 is still a pretty good postseason record. But now you look at Seattle. You're no longer scared of them. That Legion of Boom luster is worn off, and now they are just the Seattle Seahawks. They are a playoff team with a talented team that at home can basically beat anybody and should. But on the road, if you are in Atlanta, a Dallas, a Green Bay, maybe even Minnesota or some other, if you are having the Seahawks in your building, you should feel confident enough that not only can you compete against them at the worst, you should be able to beat them more often than not on the road if you get them in their building. And one final thing, I want to issue a quick thing because I believe this was the turning point in the game. There is a player on the Seattle Seahawks named Kevin Pierre-Louis. And I'm not saying that Atlanta would have still not won the game, but Kevin Pierre-Louis holding on the Devin Hester punt return to about the 10-yard line was the turning point of that game. And I just would like to say to Seattle fans and the Seattle Seahawks franchise, I know they won't care about my opinion, but this is my video, so I will say it. I would like Kevin Pierre-Louis cut today. Because he was the reason that game turned on its head, and honestly, for that mistake, he deserves to get cut today. And, that scrub of a player deserves to get cut today. And because he basically stifled the entire momentum of the Hawks, and that could have made the game a whole lot different if the Seahawks were up by 10 instead of up by 3. And then, of course, Russell Wilson gets the safety afterward, and then we have a whole different conversation. So again, Kevin Pierre-Louis, the great special teamer. I know you're not going to get cut, but I would cut your rear end today and send you without a job because you deserve it after basically stifling the momentum of the Seattle Seahawks. So that's all I'm going to say about that. But now, just to get back to kind of this Atlanta-Green Bay game, I'm going to take Atlanta here just because I'm going to say that this Atlanta defense can basically almost mirror an effort they did against Seattle. Because Green Bay's receivers, Jordy Nelson probably won't play. Devontae Adams is not going to be 100%, but I do expect him to play. But you are playing a much weaker running game, and you are playing a weaker wide receiving core. Atlanta has the home field advantage. Matt Ryan's been playing much better. They have the much better running game. They have the offensive lines are about a push, and I do believe they have the better overall defense. They can run the ball like I believe Dallas did. I believe they also can throw the ball against Green Bay's average at best secondary, but most of the time below average secondary. And combined with the fact that they have the better running game, Matt Ryan, it's at home. This is the final game in the Georgia Dome for the Atlanta Falcons franchise before they just moved down a little bit of the road to the Mercedes-Benz Dome in Atlanta. All I'm going to say is, like I said, this is Matt Ryan's moment to shine. He's been an MVP candidate, or the MVP candidate for the entire year. If he wants to put his stamp on the MVP award, I believe he will win this game. They will be able to run the ball more effectively. Atlanta's defensive line should be able to get a little bit more push on the Packers' offensive line. And I just think where Aaron Rodgers is going to put up his points, I just think Matt Ryan will have the ball in his hand last, and he'll be able to make enough throws on this Green Bay defense to get the win in a phenomenal shootout. And again, Aaron Rodgers, and again, you're going to play a quarterback that when he goes into the Georgia Dome, he is absolutely sensational. In 4 games, Aaron Rodgers is 500 at 2-2. He averages 338 passing yards per game, 75% completion percentage, 10 TDs, 0 INTs, and I believe he has an ESPN QBR of 89.7. So Aaron Rodgers, plays extremely well in that building. And the last time they played earlier this year, it was a 1-point game. It was 32-32 with a Matt Ryan 2-3 second touchdown to, I believe, Mohamed Sanu to win the game. Aaron Rodgers was not at his best, but his offense still put up 32 points. I think that this game will easily get into the 30s. It may get into the 40s, and I feel more confident that it will go over 40 for one of those teams at least they have to have a chance to win. And at the end of the day, I'm going to go with Atlanta. The better receiving core, the healthier team. They have a much better running game. I think Dan Quinn will be able to outdo Dom Capers by a bit. And also, it's the final game in the Georgia Dome. And if I think those Atlanta Falcons have any motivation or any encouragement, they will close out that building on a phenomenal high note and will not let the Packers go into their building and shut it down if they lost, knowing that they're not making the Super Bowl, and the Packers get to go to their first Super Bowl since 2010, and the Falcons haven't, and Rodgers already won one, where the Falcons, this will be their first Super Bowl since 98, and they will have a much better chance in 98 against New England or Pittsburgh than they did against Denver back in 99. No, I'm sorry, 98. So, again, it's going to be a phenomenal game. I'm going to take Green Bay here +4 because I can't. Again, this is such a tough game, and Rodgers may be able to do the same thing he did against the Dallas Cowboys like he will do the Falcons because, again, it's a weaker defensive matchup, and Russell Wilson had his chances to make throws that I don't think Aaron Rodgers will not miss. But I'm going to take Atlanta here. Trust the offense more. They're the more healthy team. Dan Quinn will do a better defensive job to hold Aaron Rodgers enough to let that offense score more. Better running game, and it's the final game in the Georgia Dome. I'm going to say the Atlanta Falcons show up, and they let the Atlanta fan base celebrate the Dome and close it out with a moment of pure ecstasy and glory by beating the hottest team and the hottest quarterback in the NFL, in Aaron Rodgers. So that's why I like Green Bay +4 and Atlanta straight up. And the other game, Pittsburgh at New England. For New England, with their game against Houston, that's one of those amazing things about New England. Tom Brady had his worst completion percentage in a postseason game for him. He also threw 2 interceptions in the game. In the 431 pass attempts when he went 11-1 through the regular season, he also only had 2 interceptions. He actually had the best TD interception ratio in NFL history with 28 touchdowns, only 2 interceptions. So that's kind of amazing how decent the Houston Texans defense did throughout that game. The first one was a tip on Michael Floyd. That's really not Brady's fault, but the second one, the other one, the guy just folded him into the tip, and then I think Andre Hall picked it off for the second time. So kudos for Houston's defense and team for showing a much better and putting up a much more respectable effort throughout the game than they did the last time when they got shut out 27-0. I also want to congratulate Dion Lewis, the first NFL player in NFL history in a postseason game to a receiving, running, and kickoff return touchdown in the same postseason game. And fun fact, that is also the first ever kickoff or punt return touchdown in New England Patriots franchise history. So congratulations to him. He was a tremendous X factor in the game. And having a guy like him, combining him with Garrett Blount and James White will be a tremendous effort and positive for the New England Patriots moving forward. But it's kind of amazing how, when you look at the New England Patriots after that game, you literally would feel like they either lost the game or they just barely won off a field goal or a last-second touchdown. No, they won the game by 18 points. Nobody felt that game was out of hand for New England, yet they come out of the game like, well, it was kind of a bad game, bad execution. No smiles. They're just sitting there going, well, you know what, we can improve on what we can. Where in the other game that was in yesterday, or in the AFC divisional game, Pittsburgh had every right, all their players had every right to be upset at their press conferences, had every right to be angry, because they just realized they stole a game against the Chiefs that they dominated, but they should not have had. Maybe, Chris Boswell, congratulations to him. He became the first NFL kicker to have 6 field goals in a single postseason game. And again, you know what's going to happen with Chris Boswell now? He will get drug tested because last time he kicked 6 field goals, he got a random drug test after that happened. So we will see if that happens. Just a little funny joke. But here is one of the great stats about that game, which I found out. Chris Boswell's total yardage of kicks, for the 6 kicks he had to kick as many yards to football as the entire Chiefs offense had the entire game. So if Chris Boswell just kicked the ball as far as he did, he would have had the same amount of yards as the entire Chiefs offense had the entire game. And also, again, I want to congratulate Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown. Le'Veon Bell was sensational. 170 rushing yards. He actually breaks his own record from last week when he had 163 rushing yards for the most rushing yards in a single game in Steelers franchise history. And Antonio Brown tied Larry Fitzgerald for the most consecutive 100-plus yard games in the postseason with 4 after his 7-reception, 108-yard game yesterday against Kansas City. And here's the thing about Kansas City real quick. I was a big Chiefs fan throughout the year. I thought they were a consistent, fundamentally, good team that they had a good enough offense, phenomenal defense, could run the ball effectively enough, had, Tyreek Hill, Jeremy, and Alex, and Andy Reid, a decent coach. But the reason why I took Pittsburgh was the reason why Kansas City lost the game. Pittsburgh was not great, but Pittsburgh made big plays. Antonio Brown, Le'Veon Bell had 20-plus plays more often than Kansas City had. And every time Kansas City tried to have one of those plays, either it would be dropped, there would be a flag, or they just couldn't hit him. And that's why I took Pittsburgh to win. Because in Kansas City, at the end of the day, as much as I respected them through the regular season, I knew that, like I think I said to you guys last week, Pittsburgh needed to make more big plays to win. Kansas City needed, if Pittsburgh made more big plays than mistakes, they would win, and that's exactly what they did. There were a couple fumbles, but Kansas City made much more mistakes, which for them is killer because they can't really overcome those mistakes if they happen. But also again for Pittsburgh, this is interesting. In back-to-back games now for Ben Roethlisberger against the AFC West teams, he has no touchdowns and 1 interception. Though this game he didn't play nearly as well. I don't think he threw for 300-plus yards like he did against Denver. But still, the AFC West has his number the last couple years in the playoffs. And with this game, the Steelers get to go to their 16th AFC title game, which is the most since the NFL merger. And this Pittsburgh Steelers-New England Patriots game, it's the 3rd installment in the AFC title game. Sad fact for Steeler fans, in 01 and 04, the New England Patriots won the game. Just like I expect the New England Patriots to do, once again, for the 3rd time, to win the game. And here's the reason why I'm taking the Patriots. After all what I said, New England has the better defense. I think they have better defensive talent. Kudos to James Harrison, the 38-year-old who got his 4th straight game with sack in the postseason, which is incredibly impressive. But I just look at the Pats and go, they have more running back depth. Pittsburgh's going to hammer Le'Veon Bell. They're going to keep ringing that bell. And that bell will, maybe like the stock market bell, on a good day, that yardage and that consistency will continue to rise. But New England has a 3-headed monster of Blunt, White, and Lewis. They all have different factors to them, and they all can provide different elements. The fact that I don't see Le'Veon, well, I guess Le'Veon could do that, but I think, again, putting that many snaps on Le'Veon would be kind of just a concern for me, especially with his injury history and especially with the team he's going up against. I would try to start adding some D'Angelo Williams and maybe even Fitzgerald Toussaint into the game plan just to give Le'Veon some rest. But with that being said, I don't expect it to happen. I give the offensive lines are about a push, but Pittsburgh has the better offensive line. New England has the better defense. New England has the better wide receiving core. New England has the better edge at tight end. New England has the better edge at special teams in both kicking and punting. And they also have the edge at coaching. And it's just an aspect of where Alex Smith was limited in making deep throws and making big-time plays, Tom Brady is not limited at all. And here is the clincher for me for the entire aspect. Since Big Ben has been a Pittsburgh Steeler, he has never beaten Tom Brady and the Patriots in Foxborough. He only has 1 career win in Foxborough, Massachusetts, as a Pittsburgh Steeler. That was a game in 2008 against the Matt Castle-led New England Patriots. Knowing that history, knowing that the Patriots are more consistent, knowing the Patriots, again, can play as bad as they did. And Pittsburgh played a very bad game themselves mostly. And one team could still cover a team by over 16 points. And another team barely got a win on a controversial play that some people could argue, shouldn't have been called. And we could have had a tie game in a completely different conversation. But I'm going to take New England here. Better coaching. The fact that Pittsburgh hasn't beaten them in New England with Big Ben. And I just think when you saw Antonio Brown put his Facebook Live video up, that just added extra motivation for the New England Patriots to play more focused and more angry against a Pittsburgh team that they don't like in the first place that much, even harder, and try to prove a bigger point. It's going to be a very good game, but kind of the same thing with like Pittsburgh and New England. It's one of those things where I fully expect New England to win this game, but I will give Pittsburgh the points because they didn't have Ben, and I will give Ben at least a touchdown or about a 6-point swing from what they had the last time to make it a 5-point game, to make it a 5 or 6 point game. So it's going to be a very good game, but I'm going to take New England straight up. Pittsburgh was 5.5 because Pittsburgh has an offense. This is, we've seen what they can do with this full offense, and New England's defense doesn't have the talent. And if Pittsburgh, can control the game, they'll be able to put up points and make the game basically a field goal or a last-second touchdown type of game to a 3 to 4 point game. So that's it. So those are my thoughts and comments on the two games. Like, comment, rate, subscribe. Best of luck to all the teams, coaches, players, any playoff fantasy players, and fellow prognosticators. And that's it. So until next week, where I give a preview of my prediction for Super Bowl 51, this is Matt the Fanatic signing off. Until next time. Till then, so long.